this video I'm going to show you how to rig up two separate types of limbs. One of them uses the puppet tool to create the joints and the other is jointed by using multiple pieces. I've already done one of the arms here. This arm can bend this way or this way. Right now it goes behind his body, but we'll fix that later when we get further along. So the first step for making this is you're going to have to create some null objects. So I'm going to create new layer, new null object. Alright, and I'm going to close this guy off since we've already done him. Alright, lock those up. Okay, and this is going to be for his left arm, so I'm going to make these ones orange. I try to color code things because it's easier once you start getting tons of layers to navigate quickly around and know what you're looking at. So first thing I'm going to do is drag this up to his shoulder area, around his shoulder, and the way I'm laying these out is I'm imagining where my pins are going to go from my puppet tool, because eventually the puppet pins will actually follow these null objects around. In the other arm, if you look at it here, I've attached the puppet pins, I've connected them to the null objects so I can move them around without having to go into the puppet tool to do it. The next step is to label, so let's call this shoulder, arm, this is left, elbow, left. The reason I call it shoulder arm left is because there's also going to be a shoulder pin on the actual shoulder on the torso. That will drive the shoulders up and down on his body. So we need to have a couple of them. Elbow left, okay. Wrist left, score. Perfect. Okay, so now that those are all named, I'm going to go in and I am going to implement the puppet pins. Alright, the pins are now added, so the next step is implementing the code to attach those pins to the null objects, to get them to follow the null objects. It's pretty simple to do. Alt-click. I've used this code many times in many tutorials. It's actually... I'm just pasting it from another place. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to select this, and just like in the face, I'm going to drag this to the layer, because N is the layer that we want to track. The only problem is that I can't see my layers, so elbow, shoulder. Okay, shoulder was first. Okay, so I hate these little windows. So this one has to be, let's change this one to wrist. That's the wrist. This one is the elbow, and then the last one is the shoulder. Shoulder, arm left, perfect. Let's have a look. Okay, so let's try to rotate. We now have to parent the wrist to the elbow to the shoulder, and while we're at it, if we want, I'm actually going to change the order of this because I want to go from the shoulder down. While we're at it, we can attach the hand to the wrist null object. This is the nice thing about using null objects as well, is you can actually attach other objects to them and they drive the pins as well, so everything gets connected together, so you're not trying to track a hand to a pin. So there we go, hand stuck on there, great. Elbow, let's try the elbow. Now right now that arm is really rubbery, so I think what we're going to want to do is change some of the settings of the puppet mesh on the sweater arm left here. So let's open that up. Okay, and I think what we're mostly going to be changing is none of the pins. The pins are all great. I think what we'll be doing is adding some starch here, and I'm going to put this to 1%. I'm going to put the extension to 500 because I've already done this on the other arm. And if I left, oh, let's turn that rotation to 0 because the arm's not in the same place it was in before. Okay, so let's turn on some starching. First place I'm going to do is right here. Now I want the starch to go roughly to where the elbow is. I put the extent up really high. You could put it in the middle and then lower the extent, but I'm just putting it down here. And alright, now I'm going to do the shoulder, because I really want that shoulder to be solid. I can increase the extension up here, or the extent up here. Okay, so now let's try that elbow joint and see how that works. It's definitely a lot better. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I need it to be able to rotate both ways, because the puppet's arms are going to go both ways, sometimes in front, sometimes on this side. So that works well. The other thing I need to do is I want to add a little bit of an elbow to that, because that elbow is just rounding off a little too much, and I might lower the extent of this just a little, 600. And I'm just going to add here extent 25 and amount 0.3, and I'm going to do the same here. And what that should do, hopefully, is it should give us kind of an elbow joint a little bit. It does on that guy, it doesn't so much here, and that is because this extension isn't enough. So we need to be, let's go more there. Let's try that. The only thing you gotta watch for is weird stuff like this, because I don't want that to happen. Because an elbow that works in one direction may not work in another. Yeah, see, these things are a bit too stiff there, so let's try to pull this up. Actually, let's try to make the extension 580. And I'm going to pull this up just a little bit. It can get difficult to work with the mesh, because the mesh actually, it's not super intuitive. There we go. That's a little better. The only thing I'm not liking is this. So I need to fix something in there. So if you look at it, the reason you get let's turn off the sweater. So when we rotate the elbow here, and you see where you're getting that weird triangle distortion, if I actually look at the mesh of the puppet, I can see that triangle distortion is happening because of this guy right here. If I pull that away, and now let's look at that arm again, you can see it's less, it's not as much there. So let's try to rotate this and that. It doesn't look so bad, actually. I really don't mind it. The last thing I'd like to do is change the overlap. So the way you can do that is just select the puppet overlap tool, and you can just create a little puppet overlap pin. And I'm going to increase the extension. I'm going to increase the extension of this until I'm covering it almost the full arm to about where the elbow is, and then I'll try to rotate this again and see how it looks. That's pretty good. I think that's good. Looks a little weird once you go there, but actually it doesn't matter. I don't mind the lines that are happening. I think it's actually really quite good. The next part we need to deal with is the legs. These I've treated differently than the arms. Let's turn these guys off for now. So the legs are actually made up of a few different pieces here. Let's turn on the hiding here. This color. Okay, so we have to deal with here is the legs. Essentially, the legs I have as two little naked legs here, and even though these are actually segmented as individual pieces, I won't be needing the puppet tool for them. I'm still going to create null objects for them, because I'm going to use those null objects to drive other things like distortions on his clothing. I'm going to turn off his sweater. Right, there we go, and let's hide all these away. So let's create some new null objects. These ones will be for his legs. So I'm going to want to put these at the points where I want them to pivot. And the knee joint right there. And the ankle. There we go. So this will be his left leg. And I just want to double check what color the left is. Orange. So I'm going to color these orange. Alright, and let's call this hip left. Let's call it hip leg left, because there's going to also be a hip in his pants. Hip leg left, knee left, and ankle left. Great. So all I'm really going to do here is just parent instead of parenting, currently I have let's move these up here. And here are the leg pieces right here. Currently I have them parented to each other. I have the calf parented to the thigh. I'm going to turn all this off. So right now they're parented to no one. So I'm going to parent the calf to the knee. I'm going to parent the sock to the calf. The sock is never going to be animated. At least I don't plan on animating it. So I'm just going to link it onto there and just never really touch it again, hopefully. And then the thigh is going to be parented to the hip on the left. Okay, and then now I want to parent the knee to the hip and the ankle to the knee. And let's make these go in descending order. Hip, knee, ankle. Perfect. So let's just check these rotation here, make sure it's working. And the hip. Okay, and the only thing that's not quite working is this rotation of the knee. It's giving me this little bit up here, so I just need to adjust the rotation point on that. So I'll unparent the calf, and I'm going to move that knee down. Oh yeah, and unparent the ankle. And I'm going to move this knee joint down a little bit. Actually, one way to do this, if you have multiple puppet pieces, is just go in and look at. You need to find the center point of where these overlap. Now this oval shape is a bit of a problem because an oval will create, obviously there's going to be a high point, so it'll actually pop out at the top. There's a couple ways I could fix this. I think how I might solve this is I'll just create a little layer mask just to chop off the top there just a little bit. Let's go here, because we're not going to see this, and I want to try and create a nice circle between here and here. So there, and I'll just do the rest of his leg. Not that I don't really need much of it because it's covered by a sock. There we go. And I might bring this in so that the mask isn't too much bigger than the actual leg itself. There. Okay, so that should give us a decent knee. Just unparenting this again and moving that knee down. I want the knee there. Okay, perfect. The knee is where I need it. So let's get the ankle back to the knee back to the hip. Parent the calf back to the knee. There we go. That looks a lot better. And see, if you've done this, what you can also do is, if you're seeing anything not quite working, I can just take my mask and maybe I'll extend it up just a little bit. Whoops. Bring it down a bit. Let's have a look. Okay, so I think that works great. Alright, so we have that guy done. The only other thing I want to do is actually I'm going to link one of these shoes to the null object. Now, these shoes are going to change because I have several shoes that I want to use. You can see 2 of them now, but I actually have 3 or 4 pairs of them that are going to swap based on the angle of his body. And also I want them to sit in front of his foot here. So there's a little bit more of a complex thing that has to happen with the shoes. But for now, I'm just going to attach the left shoe. So let's turn these left shoes orange, because we're doing orange is left, green is right. And I'm just going to take this shoe up here, and I will attach this shoe to the ankle. So now let's see if I rotate the ankle. There, we have a nice little foot. An ankle rotation, and we have a knee. Our knee works. And let's see make sure everybody's linked together. Brilliant. And if you want, you can just press plus or minus on the number pad of your keyboard to move them around. Shift plus or minus will make for bigger rotations. Okay, cool. So I'm going to do the other leg, and then we'll get into the next stage of this. In the next video, we'll continue rigging the body, but this time I'm going to focus on the pants of the character and having them interact with the movement of the legs.